Let's speak with May Mailman, former legal advisor to President Donald Trump. May, good afternoon to you.
Hi, good morning from America.
Nice to have you with us. Mr. Trump is the man that never disappoints. It's always box office stuff whenever he turns up. We don't even see inside these courthouses when he's there. We see the cavalcade appearing and out he gets, and we see the comb-over king leave the car and go into court, and away he goes, and out he comes, and he makes a statement just like that. What's your assessment then of his mindset on all of this? He's pleaded not guilty to everything. I mentioned a second ago, May, that most of his supporters double down when they see these things happening. It seems to go very much in his favour. What will he be thinking? What will Donald Trump be doing here? How is he processing all of this?
Right. Well, I think, as is somewhat obvious, Trump is completely ruled by his emotions. And so although tactically there is a lot of positive here, before he was ever indicted for anything, he had only a 15-point lead over DeSantis. Now he has a 30-point lead. So these things obviously are good for him. But one doesn't like to be indicted, especially when you think it's unfair.
Yeah.
He is after he lost the election, he was pushing what people are calling a crazy legal theory. He would say that Joe Biden pushes crazy legal theories every day. He tried to forgive everyone's student loans. He said that everyone had to take the vaccine if you worked in a company of 50 or more people. So crazy legal theories are sort of the norm right now in America. And yet Donald Trump is the one who is being threatened to be put in jail.
Yeah.
I think that makes him angry. I think he thinks it's unfair. And he faces a lot of risk here because this case is being brought in Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. is as far left as it gets in America. This will not be a fair jury. Only 4% of people in Washington, D.C. voted for Trump. And I'm betting those are the people like me who were working at the White House at the time.
Yeah, I think you're probably right on that point. In terms of the case itself, we've spoken to a lot of people, even some Democrats. If you can find a Democrat on an honest day, I know that's not the easiest thing to do, but let's assume for argument's sake, you find they will probably say, look, of all the things you might want to throw at Donald Trump, this should not be one of them. Exercising his free speech, talking about whatever. He could be as wacky and as mad as he likes, but since when did that become illegal?
Well, I have found approximately 0 leftists who are willing to say that. It used to be in America that the Democrats and the left side of the aisle, they were the ones promoting the most robust free speech. But now it has basically become the opposite. So the New York Times ran an opinion piece basically saying that the First Amendment should not protect Donald Trump because he's too powerful. And freedom of speech is meant for little people, is meant for people who are speaking truth to power. But when you are in power, you should be held to a different standard because people listen to you too much. But they totally miss the point, which is that our First Amendment freedoms are meant for unpopular ideas. They're meant for things that people don't agree with,
Correct.
that people don't like. Otherwise, you wouldn't need a first. If it was just about protecting things you liked, you wouldn't need it.
Absolutely. It's precisely for these very points that such an amendment exists, surely. I mean, that is the whole idea, that you test the system because of areas that might be controversial, because of areas that might be disagreeable, because of areas that might be unusual and unprecedented. That's kind of why it's there, as you rightly say. In terms of Trump, though, on this case itself, is there, I mean, yes, what you say about Washington is true in terms of, it's a Democrat running through its very veins, Democratic state, as it's a city, and of course, the jury is likely, in all probability, to represent that. But of course, it could be countered by, well, any court case could be argued would be held under the same circumstances. So if you were a protester against something or for something, you would find yourself in the same rigged system, from what you're saying.
Yes. So a lot of people who were storming the Capitol that day, they are all being tried in Washington, D.C. And the judge that is overseeing Trump's case, she has sentenced these rioters to more aggressive sentences than even the government asked for. And the government here is asking for sentences that are pretty enormous themselves. So it's very unlikely that the judge is going to, throw the case out or that the jury is going to find for him. And yet I still think that there is a chance for success here because the legal issues are just so weak. And so you can present those legal questions to the judge. She'll rule against you and you can appeal and appeal and appeal. And I think eventually find a fair hearing, even if it takes getting to our Supreme Court.
What kind of man did you find Donald Trump to be, May? Of course, he divides the room. He's not the first politician to do that. But there's been some fairly undesirable and unpleasant things that have been said about him and some fairly undesirable things he said about other people. In terms of one-to-one, giving the man advice, is he open? Is he kind? Is he generous? How does it fare when you have a meeting with the president?
I mean, to me, President Trump has always been the most gracious host. He cares about listening to people who are in the room, and yet he's emotional. And so when he loses an election and he's upset and there's a group of people who are telling him what he wants to hear, he's going to gravitate there. But that has a lot to do with those people and them wanting to not give Trump good advice, but make themselves feel special and themselves feel important. And his problem, I think, when it comes to legal issues is that he is a real estate magnate. And real estate magnates don't say, yes, I can do this, black and white, no, I can't. They say, let's go ahead. I know I don't have the right permits, but let's build the building and we'll sort of deal with the legal issues later. That's how you make money. That's how it works. And so if your general view of the law is just let them sue us and we'll figure it out, it just is ill fit sometimes for the government where they just don't work as much like that. So it was a square peg in a round hole type of problem.
Got it. In terms of, just taking your lawyer hat off for a second, as an American citizen, can this man become the next president?
I think he can, but it's going to take maybe more discipline than we've seen from President Trump in the past. Because yes, he's got a lot of Republican primary voters rallied around him, but when it comes to the general, people are not going to want to relitigate whether the 2020 election was rigged or not. And so he's going to have to give a different message to the public than that one. That shift, talking about the pain that Americans have felt under President Joe Biden, that is an available message. That's an easy message. He can absolutely do that, but it's going to require putting aside personal grievances.
So concentrate on the policies now, because there is perhaps an open goal there. Listen, May, thank you. May Mailman, she's the former legal advisor to President Donald Trump and her assessment of his chances at the next election.